Hello again, it's Deb Del Vecchio-Scully, and this is the next module on understanding effective treatment. The most effective treatments for trauma are considered part of what's known as a bottom-up model. This has everything to do with the way the brain forms and also how it performs. So understanding that when there is a trauma, we incorporate that trauma experience in a bottom-up process of really disturbed, upset physical sensations and top-down process of confused thoughts and beliefs. Our brains develop in a sequential manner, beginning at the lowest part of the brain with the brain stem, moving up into the subcortex, which contains the limbic system, the amygdala, both responsible for regulating all of our emotions, and then up to the top part of the brain, the neocortex, which is where all of our higher functionings, our executive functions occur. So our ability to think, to reason, to learn new information, to record new information in our long-term memory, all happens in this part of the brain. So just some quick facts for you to understand. The majority of the brain development occurs from birth to the age of 4. However, our brains continue to develop well into the mid-20s, and we really don't consider adolescence complete until the mid-20s. We organize from the bottom up, meaning the brainstem to the cortex and then out. I know this is a little bit technical, but for those of you who are interested, I think it will be helpful. So our ability to have organizational and functional capacity, or skills, if you will, is sequential. It starts in the low part of the brain and moves up through the brain. And our experiences do not have equal weight throughout our development. So now, depending on when a person is exposed to a traumatic event, will determine how you're functioning in the here and now. And so we can always influence change in the brain. Our brains have the capacity to change at all times. It's something that's called neuroplasticity. Our brains are actually considered to be plastic. But it does require a bottom-up therapeutic approach. And, part of this is that it's simply not possible to talk through a traumatic event and have that get deep enough into the brain structure to reset the limbic system. Instead, we really have to work following the sequential way that the brain has developed. So cognitive behavioral or talk therapies primarily target our thinking, judgment, and willpower parts of the brain, or the regions of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is vital to our functioning. However, during a traumatic event, non-essential parts of the brain go offline, and that includes the prefrontal cortex. That includes an area of the brain known as Broca's area. Broca's area is responsible for encoding new information and encoding language and assisting in storing that in long-term memory. But during a traumatic event, Broca's area is considered non-essential and unavailable. So therefore, the traumatic memory is stored viscerally. It's stored in the body. It's stored using all of our senses. So what a person saw, what they smelled, what they tasted, what they heard, and what they were feeling in their body at the moment of the traumatic event really holds the key to the healing, the release, and the reprocessing of those discomfortable memories. Asking someone to tell their story and retell their story can trigger someone in an instant, but it can take much longer for someone to calm down and to regain their sense of balance, of centeredness. And if you remember back in the first part of this series, I talked about the window of tolerance. Well, talking about your trauma will escalate you out of the window of tolerance instantly. And then we need to work really hard to help somebody come back down. So what we know is that what doesn't change is just talking about that event can create a very uncomfortable experience at a very visceral level. And just talking about it will not help anyone calm or return back into their window of tolerance. Let's talk about what worked in Sandy Hook and why. Number one, a layered approach. It's unlikely that one single therapeutic approach will be effective. You'll most need a primary therapist and then other additional tools to heal completely. And so we focused on making recommendations of social emotional activities for children and health and wellness activities for adults. These were considered more non-traditional. There were school-based groups, and there were multiple attempts made until the best fit was found. And so that right fit between you and the therapist is paramount. It's got to be the right therapist with the best skills to help, but someone whom you also can relate to, can create rapport with, and feel comfortable with. There was a great deal of spontaneous art, discussion, and movement. So this photo here was I was given permission to use. One of the children who was in the school drew this soon afterwards. And you can see the angels on top, one for each of the students that were murdered and for the 6 educators. And this was her unconscious, was kind of giving her a way to express her feelings. And so having additional tools beyond traditional therapy can be really helpful and really important. And keeping in mind that bottom-up kind of approach. So we know that anything that is rhythmic, that's pattern, such as movement, running, playing sports, art, music, play therapy, drama therapy, participating in dramatic arts with plays was a big part of the healing for many in the community. Understanding that the complexity of healing from this will require different approaches at different times, particularly as the children are maturing and developmentally moving through different stages. So focusing on the difference between traditional therapy with a licensed therapist versus therapeutic activities, as both play key roles in creating a healing plan for yourself, for your family, for your child. We found that non-traditional activities were a key part in healing, and these are some of the things that were really effective in Sandy Hook. For both children and adults, aromatherapy, I'll go into that in coming slides. Art, music, and play therapy, anything that taps into creativity and that is fun for a child, an adolescent to participate, and even adults to participate in, can help make it more easy to be able to address really painful content, and are particularly helpful when processing grief. Animal assisted, and this included comfort dogs in the homes and at school. One mom who I worked with, her son was in the first grade classroom and survived by running for his life at 6 years old, told me that the single most important thing that they had done when I met her about 6 weeks after the shooting was to get a comfort dog. She said it decreased the anxiety in their home by 50%, and has continued now 6 years later to be a key part of their ongoing emotional healing. Animal-assisted therapy also included equine-assisted therapy. And there's just something about the rhythm that happens when children can play with animals, can be with animals, that cannot happen in other ways. So that was very powerful. All kinds of camps and classes, from yoga to outdoors kinds of camps, equine assisted program, Project Hope ran camps all summer long, and these camps were full immediately within an hour of them being open to the community. As were the Resiliency Center ran camps that were very creativity based. Those two would sold out almost immediately because they were just so supportive. Playmakers is a form of play therapy that is really focused on the body, and so the kids were taught how to to run up and down, lay down, learn how to breathe, how to regulate their heart rate. So it was a really helpful model. And sports of all kinds, being part of a team in some way, continued to build new connections, new relationships, and really fostered that sense of accomplishment that the children really needed. With adults, a lot of the same applies. I think for them, gym memberships was something that was really helpful. Routine exercise of all kinds, cardiovascular exercise. Again, when a brain is dysregulated, we're looking for things that will regulate it, will calm it, will soothe it. Movement is a key one for that. Anything rhythmic, that could be drumming, that could be music, pretty much anything that would help the brain actually change so you felt differently, we consider to be effective. Yoga was helpful both for the kids and the adults. And you may have things that you could add to this list. I would say, if you find an activity that works for you or works for your family or for your child that truly makes a difference, great. Do more of it. Brain-based treatments. So, we've talked about how the brain forms and the need for this bottom-up model. When we categorize bottom-up, top-down, we know that top-down models are cognitive approaches. That's cognitive behavioral therapy, cognitive processing therapy, trauma-focused CBT, talk therapies. Will they help to desensitize? They will. But there's many more therapies that can do more than desensitize. They can actually reprocess the way the trauma memory is held, which will then take away the emotional charge of it. Nothing takes the memory away, but it's harder and harder to recall it, and it no longer interferes and intrudes in your life in the same way. Bottom-up therapies include brain spotting, tapping, expressive therapies, EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing, neurofeedback, the playmakers play therapy, somatic experiencing, and sensorimotor psychotherapy are both really a body-based form of trauma therapy that can be really helpful to release the trauma load, and trauma-focused art therapy. I think the key thing is when you're looking for a therapist, you want someone who is trained in a modality that they identify as their primary way of treating trauma, and they have undergone certification if it's available, because many types of treatments don't have certification, that they've gotten extensive consultation and supervision and should be getting ongoing consultation and supervision now. So some of the key questions to be asking: how long have you been practicing this treatment? What are your success rates? What are the specifics about different presentations that make it better than other treatments? Don't be hesitant to ask as many questions as you need to feel comfortable that you have found someone that you can be comfortable with. That's what's most important. And any good therapist is not going to have a problem with you asking a lot of questions. Understanding how and why smell influences emotions has everything to do with our brain and the neuroscience of the brain. Many associate aromatherapy with scents that smell good, or you like the way something smells. What I'm referring to is using essential oils as a direct tool to affect an emotional state that someone is experiencing. Smell is the only sense that is directly routed to the limbic system through the olfactory bulb, which is located directly adjacent to the limbic system. When we inhale an essential oil that has a compound in it, say we want one that is going to be calming, it is getting directly to the limbic system, which is the brain's emotional center, within 20 seconds. And it is the quickest way to decrease the intensity of an unpleasant emotion or brain state, and will also be the quickest way to enhance an emotion or brain state. Remember, the limbic system regulates all emotions: heart rate, blood pressure, breathing, memory, our stress levels, and even our hormone balance. We can directly impact through using the sense of smell. When we access the limbic system directly by inhaling essential oils, our emotions can be directly and more effectively contained. I have seen this again and again, witnessed this again and again, and I used the oils extensively during my time embedded at the Sandy Hook School, and the staff knew I had always had oils on me. I would make my rounds in the morning before school started and could tell by a particular expression or how someone was doing. And it would be, well, what do you need? And they would tell me which oil they wanted, and they would take a couple of breaths and be like, okay, I'm okay now. And I have used them to take someone who would show up at my office kind of overwhelmed, triggered, sobbing, and was able to get them back in front of their classrooms in under 15 minutes using essential oils and other tools. So they are a really effective way to not only cope, but really prevent suffering. When I was in Parkland, I left behind many bottles of a blend called Cortisol Calm. And this is a custom blend based on a research that showed inhalation of the oils in this blend reduced blood pressure levels and reduced cortisol levels after inhaling for 20 minutes. This is a really powerful blend. I would encourage you to look into getting some of this for yourself and for your family. Have it in the diffuser overnight. It will help to reduce the underlying stress levels. And I also left other blends and oils, some to help with grief and some to help with a high alert state. You just contact Luna Medina Wolf at Parkland United. As we complete this webinar, want to provide you with resources. And the first is from healthjourneys.com, which is a wonderful website that has many different types of meditation and guided imagery products. They have created a page specifically for Parkland, and that direct link can be found on the Professionals United for Parkland page at professionalsunitedforparkland.com, or you can email them at unitedforparkland@gmail.com. Additionally, if you are looking for a therapist for yourself, for your family, for your child, email unitedforparkland@gmail.com, and they will help connect you to the best possible therapist for you. And finally, the EMDR Trauma Recovery Network, is Eye Movement Desensitization Reprocessing, is at Southeast Florida, trn.org. They are continuing to give 5 free 90-minute EMDR sessions to those impacted by the MSD shooting. So that's a wonderful resource, and I highly recommend that you take advantage of these free resources that are available to you. And finally, I have created a private resource page that has several articles, blogs, and other helpful information. And you can access that at my website at centerforneuropotential.com/Parkland/. And if I can help in any way, if I can answer questions or direct you to any support services, feel free to email me at dScully@centerforneuropotential.com. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the very best in moving forward in healing that you can find and that you so richly deserve.